I am on a little bit of a different side of AI and what I'm excited about in the next year from the perspective of I think AI gets sold as a shortcut to efficiency. And what I'm most excited about is sort of future-proofing my clients for where the world, in my opinion, is going from an AI perspective.
We have an operations sync once a week, and then as far as making sure that the information from those syncs flows down through everyone in the organization, I actually have a custom GPT that takes transcripts of our management syncs, just allows us to paste that in, and then the custom GPT formulates kind of like a message to the team based off of the things that we're discussing in these calls so that they feel involved.
So that's cool about the AI, the note-taking. We do that as well, and the action items, that summarized action items are pretty awesome. We run things a little bit differently at New Brand regards to, we keep everything onshore. I've been down the road of offshoring over the past 16 years, and I can tell you some freaking nightmare stories.
For me, it's about making, since I work with smaller businesses, it's almost a democratization of marketing, of public relations. They have more access and ability to do things that they didn't necessarily have before. PR has always been a very expensive thing, and small businesses have been left out, in my opinion.
We've kind of tackled the AIO GEO space, and we've built these little products that people can basically install in their business. They end up looking at it, and then they go over to ChatGPT and try to have it do the same thing that what we built does, and they're like, "Why does it not look as good? Why isn't it doing what you did?" And I'm like, "Well, you forgot the 42 steps between the thing you did and the thing I did."
Welcome back to another SEO On Air episode. I'm your host, and today we're diving into what it really takes to build an agency and scale an agency. We have 5 great guests on with us today. We're excited to have all of you here. We appreciate your time. We're going to give you guys a chance to discuss a few questions openly with each other and find out a little bit more about how everyone's running their agencies. And I'm going to give everyone just a few minutes to tell us a little bit about who you are first before we dive too deep into the questions. So I'll go ahead and point it out. Hayden, if you want to start off, give us a quick intro to who you are and your background in the agency world.
Sure, yeah. So I'm the CMO of 2Point. We're a full service marketing agency founded in 2006 out of San Diego. We primarily focus on multi-channel marketing across platforms like ads, SEO, social media, websites, etc. You name it. We focus on helping companies scale to 100 million plus. So if you're at the very, very beginning in the startup kind of world or in the bootstrapping kind of phase, we can help you get off of ground zero. But also, if you're in the middle somewhere, you've been stuck at 20 million ARR and can't figure out how to get higher, we're great at helping you get over those kind of hurdles too. So yeah, that's what we're really great at, and that helps us to work with a lot of varied clients, lots of different industries, lots of different verticals, totally different services across the board. So it's a really multifaceted team. We're global, but primarily US based, with about somewhere between 50 and 60 headcount right now. So
awesome. Thanks for the intro. We're excited to have you, Hayden. I know in our conversation earlier, we had a lot of we went in depth on the quality of the work and kind of your high bar for that. So we're excited to have you on. Matt, please give us a little view into who you are.
Hey everyone, Matt Corsandi, founder of GLP Marketing and SERPs.com. Serving different audiences, I'll speak specifically to GLP Marketing, the agency side of things. We serve primarily 7-figure and 8-figure law firms. Our sweet spot has been helping 7-figure law firms scale to 8 figures. Our core area of expertise and really what we own is just SEO, but we act as a consulting CMO to the firms that we serve by helping play that marketing coordinator role for all aspects of their marketing. And we've been doing this for almost 5 years now, team of about 25. I'd say we're still very much a boutique agency, not looking to work with everyone, but looking to definitely scale up in the next couple of years.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Matt. Adam, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Adam Payne. I'm the CEO of New Brand. We're a performance marketing agency. I've run my agency for 16 plus years now. And I'm also a boutique agency like Matt. I'm actually even more boutique. I have about 8 people on my team. that we handle everything from SEO, PPC, content. We're also very good at Shopify e-commerce management and promotion there. We mainly work with B2B. There is some B2C crossover, but we do also like to work with companies that are doing at least $1 million a year in annual gross revenue, and then we can really push them up to 2 to 3 times their ROAS within the first year. It's great. I love to see that type of performance for them because the client's excited. We're excited for their growth as well. We're definitely trying to stay up to speed with what AI is doing and be on that forefront so we can offer those types of services to our clients as well. We don't have a specific niche. We work mainly with CMOs and C-suite type of companies that are, like I said, in more of the lower end revenue where we see opportunity to bring them up. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here. Thank you. Heather, please give us a view of your world.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. My world is a little bit smaller than you guys. I left corporate world a couple of years ago and started Sandbox Communications. My mission is really to try and help small businesses across the U.S., but primarily in Loudoun County, Virginia. My mission has always been to try and help the little guys compete with the big guys. In the corporate world, I always had access to, pretty much anything, and the small businesses don't. AI is so helpful in making it more accessible to the smaller guys.
I love it. I remember specifically with you, there's a human-centered focus on your marketing that I feel like stands out. So we're excited to have you and your perspective as well. Thanks for being here. Clint, please tell us more.
Hi, I'm Clint Rudolph. I am co-founder of the Excite Group. We are a full-service digital agency, about 15 years old now. Headcount for us is about 25 or 30. We focus on not focusing on anything in particular. We pride ourselves on being very transparent and creating a high level of accountability with our clients. We want our clients to be our partners, not just go do my marketing for me. And so I would say we're boutique as well, not from the standpoint of the amount of revenue. We have large clients. We have very small world clients like Heather as well. It's really about the partnership, and we do everything: SEO, web development, video production, Google Ads, paid social, all of that stuff. In the last 6 months, we've heavily focused on leaning into AI for the reasons that Heather was talking about, particularly in small and medium-sized businesses, where probably just like all of us, we founded our agencies, just like any business owner starts their company for a reason and for a passion. And oftentimes, as probably all of us know, we wear a million different hats, and sometimes we get away from the reason that we started it in the first place. And so that's something that we're really passionate about, leaning into AI to help our businesses work more on their business and their plan instead of working in their business, so that life keeps happening for them and they have less busy work and more living. That's kind of where we lean in.
I think Heather's shaking her head already in agreement that that's exactly what she's looking for out of her agency, is to help people. And I think that's tends to be the best agencies really have that intent. So with the podcast moving forward into the question side of things, I do think that that's going to be one of the themes that I want to drive into this, is how are you actually making life better for your customers? We're going to ask a few questions about like how you're building your teams, how you're able to find leadership, but ultimately your goal as an agency is to assist a customer with their own business. So I think that will tie together pretty well for a good theme on this situation. So starting with the first question, I'll open it up to the group. What's your process for building a leadership team that can actually scale with the company and not just fill roles today, but carry you into the next stage of growth? How are you able to find a leadership team that matches your vision of the company and grows with you?
One of the things that I think is really important is to not be set in stone, meaning I need X, Y, and Z. Granted, I've just had my first hire, so I'm very excited by that. But one of the things that really surprised me was that what I was looking for wasn't the right match. And when I saw her resume, I went, this is going to help me scale. And so one of the things that was really particular was being, I think, open-minded to someone else's talents and not being so rigid on we need X, Y, and Z, and really seeing how they can fit in where you want to go and what your vision is.
Yeah, so I've hired a lot of leaders at this point, um, and I've hired a lot of bad leaders, and I've also hired some really great ones. Um, I think for me at this point, I've kind of gotten a lot better at knowing what to look for, and it's not really resume based as much as a lot of people think that it is. And like HR teams are very resume based, and it's volume and you know list of experiences, what companies they're coming from, those sort of things. Most of the time, what I've found is the leading indicator for whether or not somebody's going to be a successful leader long term is more personality based or culture, you could argue it as. So for me, and I think it's also different by business. So, one of you might have a very different internal culture than what we have, and neither one is necessarily right or wrong. It's just different. We have different groups of people that operate differently, think differently, different clients, etc. Um, so for us, our whole thing is like an obsession with quality, and then also an obsession with like kind of ambitiousness. So we look for brands that are trying to do things that are new, novel, exciting, etc. We're less interested in like having the fifth of the same type of brand that's competing in the same space. We really want to have like a lot of diversity. And we're also, even within that, looking for brands that don't want to just like do what the Joneses are doing. They want to come in and like be the best in their space, the absolute best. They don't want to like, be top 10%. They want to be 1.1.1, like all the way at the very top. So for us, the people that we hire have to kind of share that value and goal. They need to have like an obsession with quality output. They need to have a constant kind of obsession and ambition with what they do. So for example, we hire a paid ads director. That person needs to be like, they need to eat, sleep, dream paid advertising. I want to hear stuff about like when they're going to go grocery shopping, they have a AirPod in and they're listening to a podcast about what meta updates launched this week. I want to hear stuff about how they solved a problem in a previous company that nobody else could solve, and they spent 50 hours on it. It wasn't even assigned to them, but they wanted to solve it because they just needed it fixed. Things like that. The resume could be horrible and they could be really junior or new to their industry, but that kind of characteristic is, I mean, guaranteed. It's kind of like a compounding effect for both their own career, but it can be for your business as well. So when I find somebody like that, even if I'm not hiring for their role, like I try to find a way to get them in. If they're a great writer and that's their thing, I might not need a writer right now, but I'm going to find some way to like get them a relationship with our company, even if it's part-time or something. Because the second I do need somebody, I'd like to have that in. I'd like to have the opportunity to get that person on. And then obviously in hiring rounds, we're talking to a lot of people. We're really selective. We might go through 100, resumes and dozens of interviews, multiple rounds per person to make these choices. And so it's not just like what's Hayden's opinion. It's what are my opinion, several other people on the team, people who are going to work for this person, people who are going to be above that person. So we try to really cohesively get everybody aligned to say like, yes, we see these values, we all agree. And sometimes the resume fits and sometimes it doesn't. But um, that's kind of like the thing that I look for the most is that cultural alignment and ambition-based alignment with both company goals, but then also I think company goals, when you hire this way, become the team's goals. Like it's not really like something that we just, oh, this is our mission statement and we put it up on the website or whatever. It's like we all kind of eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff because we just don't hire people that don't. And so inevitably, like A players find more A players on their own, and you don't even, it's less of a selection process. It's kind of just immediately apparent to everybody involved.
It is a breed thing, isn't it? I mean, it's like a certain type of people, and you know it right away. I think like I'm very much in charge of talent acquisition and to build out my leadership roles. And like you were saying, I I think there's a mix between like OCD and ADHD, that you want. Obviously the core things like making sure that you can relay data to a client, be on time, first of all, be appropriately addressed, and also be able to convey information, whether that's to your internal team, right? As a leader, you really want to be making sure your vendors are going to be doing what they say and that they feel like they're a part of a family. And I think that's what it really gets to, like, as you develop out your team, like for me, it feels like there's a family being built here. We all have the same initiative, is to give our clients the best results. And yes, eat, sleep, and breathe whatever you do best in life is so critical to bringing those people on in any fashion. And your clients are just blown away, right? When they have this small circle of people that are experts at what they do, they feel like they're in great hands. And you can also relay information back and forth to team members. Like, we have a Slack channel that's dedicated for each project that we do and who's involved on it. And I don't have a single internal team member that is not on there every day, chiming in and saying, this is what I found, or being proactive. Because you can hire somebody that's just like, tell me what to do. And you don't want that kind of person. You want somebody that's just going to be, getting in the weeds and finding something to do to create value. So I couldn't agree with you more on that, Hayden.
Yeah, I think you guys have all hit on cultural aspects, right? Personality aspects of our employees. And what's always been interesting to me is that so much, it doesn't matter how great your systems are, right? So much of how things are done are not necessarily captured in systems or documents, right? It's a result of how people interact with one another. So the knowledge can't just live in documents, it lives in our people and the interactions between them. So that cultural buy-in, that self-educator, right? In our industry, things move so fast. If we don't have people who want to have that thirst for knowledge and to continue to grow and continue to adapt and get better, it's really hard to scale. And I think you guys have touched on it with the family aspect, right? You go to our website and it's Our Family is a page where is dedicated to all of our employees. And we actually have bobbleheads made of every one of our employees. And so that's what shows on our website. And if you hover over it, then it will be the real picture of them and their bio and all that jazz. But that's really important to us, and not in a fluffy way, right? Just like a family, there's conflict. We need to be able to be okay with challenging each other. We need to be okay with making mistakes, and we need to then be okay with picking each other up when those things happen. So true sense of family, not the fluff like, oh, everyone just gets along. We should be challenging each other. We should be able to take accountability, right? But have that sense of we have each other's back also.
Just reminded me, thanks. So, yeah, we're going to see that in real time in our own lives, I imagine, soon.
I love it. Can I jump in with a question? I'm curious about all of this because one of the things that I have seen is that bringing on these incredible human beings can go wrong if you don't have good onboarding. Like, if you don't bring them on in a certain way, you lose part of that culture or something kind of goes amiss. And I'm just curious if you guys have seen that or if you have ways to avoid that.
Absolutely. I mean, communication is key for me. Like I was stating before with, Slack, and in regards to the process of them becoming part of the family, there are certain tools that we use and platforms and communication tools that they are expected to be a part of. And that communication on a daily basis, check-ins with, my team every day at 10 a.m., which is right now. My project manager is actually doing it, which is great, by the way. I mean, having a project manager, I didn't have for a very, very long time. But, tasking those roles out to people that can show them the way and connect them with everybody. I think having people in places that are really responsible for that onboarding process just helps a lot. So train somebody who can train somebody.
I'd expand your question, Heather, into what not to do. Like, what have you guys tried in onboarding that you saw fail and learned from that would be good feedback for others to know before they make the same mistakes?
Not introducing someone new to interdepartment life. right? So for us, it's really important that as we onboard somebody, I want them to be immersed in the culture immediately, which means they need to see what everyone in the company does in separate teams, not in their path, right? If I hire an account manager as an example, I want them to spend a couple hours with the dev team watching how they go through their projects, what they're doing, how the challenges they're facing, so that an account manager understands what's happening at every level. They should sit with the paid search and social teams and understand what's actually going on in their challenges, not what they're physically doing, but what it takes for them to do their job so that they can all communicate together really well.
I'll just jump in back to the leadership question, and I can only obviously speak to my perspective through what I've been through. And for me, and I don't know, maybe everybody else's story here is somewhat similar, but I grew my agency completely organically. So there was no like money behind the growth. So how that started was a couple clients taking a chance on me and delivering on that work. And the work speaking for itself, and then allowing more growth to come through that, through just some referrals and stuff like that. So then the question was like, how do you reach a wall of so much that you could do by yourself, right? And so that's when I started thinking about okay, systems, processes, which are things that like I hate to build. So I hired a coach. And the very first thing that the coach showed me was this thing called templatizing the customer journey, from marketing to sales to onboarding and monthly recurring deliverables. And I hated it so much that I had to hire someone to help me actually templatize the entire customer journey and everything that we had to do. And so my first and most important hire was an operations manager, who's now my head of operations. And what she did was she helped me essentially create, a definition of done for every stage, a Loom video to go with every stage, and then identifying, okay, so who do we need to hire, right? Now that we know this is the entire customer journey, where are the bottlenecks? And then another thing that I'll reference is, maybe some of you guys are familiar with Dan Martell's Buy Back Your Time, but a lot of the way that I'm approaching hiring new team members now is, what are the highest leverage tasks that I personally am executing on right now? Which ones of those tasks give me energy? And then what are the lowest leverage tasks that I'm currently executing on right now? And which ones of those tasks don't give me energy? And I'm prioritizing offloading, don't give energy, lowest leverage tasks off myself in order to hire more and more people. Now, I wouldn't say that I've been super intentional about who makes their way into leadership, but I'll speak to what my leadership team looks like right now. It's a head of operations. It's a head of growth and automation who's very much involved in AI and automation. It's a director of SEO, and a project manager, project coordinator, so making sure all tasks in Asana are being fulfilled appropriately and we're streamlining those things, and an executive assistant. That's currently the makeup of my leadership as an agency that's doing just a few $1 million in revenue right now. So if that's helpful for any of you guys right now, that's why I share it.
I think it's a good point to transition into the next question, because we're talking about like those teams that you have and how you've gone about hiring. But the next question I want to expand on is, how are you balancing onshore and offshore work right now? Because we do know that it's a pretty hot topic for a lot of agencies, because having all your labor based in the US right now, it can be tough to be competitive unless you positioned yourself as extremely premium in the product, because your labor costs are higher. But there's certain aspects of marketing that if you lose the communication, as Adam kind of hinted to, that the communication is so important, that you can lose that trust established with your customer, yet you're balancing the cost of labor to stay as competitive as possible. I'm going to open the question up in a vague way to just say, tell me how you're balancing that at your company, and honestly, your perspective of where this is going to evolve over the next year or so as AI has become a play in there and other aspects. Matt, it looks like you raised your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll speak to that. The way that I look at onshore versus offshore talent, obviously understanding that offshore is much more affordable than onshore, is client-facing roles versus non-client-facing roles. So I'd say the majority of my team that is client-facing, if not all of my team that's client-facing, is onshore talent. Aside from that, offshore, it's offshore. So what does that look like right now in terms of the makeup of our team of 25 people? It looks like probably 65 to 70% offshore talent, and then the rest being here onshore.
I'm going to ask this before anyone else jumps in. How are you able to balance culture? And this is an open question for everyone too, because you do not want that fulfillment team overseas to be in a black box just doing work and having no vision of the company as well. How are you able to bring that vision of the culture to your companies that are, or to your employees that are fulfilling overseas? That's a second part to the question. Obviously, you're welcome to the first part as well, everyone.
I think culture is so it's so like individual to each company, right? I think for me it starts with like, who am I as a human, right? And what are my core values as a human? And then communicating those things very clearly in the interview process with team members about what we're looking for, what they're looking for, what do they see as a healthy work environment, and are we aligned from a core value perspective? And then as far as keeping the culture aligned, our executive team, we have management syncs once a week. We have an operations sync once a week. And then as far as making sure that the information from those syncs flows down through everyone in the organization, I actually have a custom GPT that takes transcripts of our management syncs and just allows us to paste that in. And then the custom GPT formulates kind of like a message to the team based off of the things that we're discussing in these calls so that they feel involved. And actually, that's only a recent thing because I've asked for feedback from my team on how we can create a better culture. And this is one of those things, like, let us know like what's going on behind the scenes from a leadership perspective. And so we have a big public team channel where everybody's in that team channel, and then we have our executive leadership channel, and we make sure that communication is flowing properly through each.
Yeah, that's cool about the AI, the note taking. We do that as well, and the action items, that summarized action items, are pretty awesome. But we run things a little bit differently at New Brand, regards to we keep everything onshore. I've been down the road of offshoring over the past 16 years, and I can tell you some freaking nightmare stories there. Yeah, the cost is, you're going to have much higher margins doing that, but there was issues with time zones. That was specifically a big problem. We got to have at least 3-hour difference. I've got people on the East Coast, and that's fine. I can make that work, but I can't make it work in India. And it felt like when we gave them a task, they didn't really. We couldn't give them the oversight that we couldn't have the oversight that we really wanted. It was just like, okay, we'll just do this. And we're like, well, wait a minute. There's a lot of thought and strategy that goes into our into the implementation side. We want to make sure things are right, and so that disconnect never really felt comfortable to me. I have all independent contractors, so actually I don't have any employees for my agency. Everybody's an independent contractor, which is kind of cool because they have their own initiatives going, and it's not enough to distract them away from their role within my agency. And so that allows me to kind of cherry pick talent a little bit more. When I need somebody on a project, I will make sure I'm getting the right person and get the time as I need from them, and they realize over a short period of time that I'm able to bring in work for them, and they ideally will be working for New Brand. However, it's a little bit of a tax thing, right? like you can get in some trouble there, some hot water if they don't have 20% of their income coming in on their own side of things. So, anyways, yeah, I think it's important to think about keeping your talent local. Um, I mean, not local within a radius of where you live, but in the United States. For me, just based off of my history with that.
Adam, I thought that was interesting. I do remember talking to you about that, and just knowing that the time zone complications, especially depending on the service, things as complicated as like a website going down and not getting access to your contractor can really damage things. So,
Can I jump into? I I actually agree, and the time zones are an issue. But for me, since I'm the small guy here, one of the things that I have found is that if I can give some of my tasks offshore, I could actually hire locally. And so for me, that's the balance, is being able to offload tasks so that I can get someone to help me here. That's been a godsend for me, and that's what I think I'm actually going to finally be able to grow, is getting some support.
Aiden, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
We have the biggest staff in the room. There's a good chunk of 2 Point that's overseas, primarily dev side. I would say that's probably 80% of our out of America staff members. But I think, and maybe this is part of what your issue was, Adam, is that like these things get both easier and harder with scale in different ways. So we're now at a size where we have like a 15 to 20 person dev team overseas, but they work in an office in a building that is only for 2 Point. They don't have any other like that is our overseas team. And so for large production websites and stuff, we have 24/7 coverage. We don't have issues with like time delays. Now, obviously, there's shifts and there's a bulk of team available during their daylight time and whatnot. But then we've also explored hybrids where we would have, maybe two or three devs in, North America, and then we would have some devs over, so like the bulk of the team overseas. We've alternated that, but I think like the development talent overseas is actually really great. They're really capable, and so like kind of the communication aspect is really important, and I think we all kind of recognize that as like one of the biggest pain points for hiring out of country is well, then there's a perspective shift, there's a communication breakdown, there's obviously the time zone issue, et cetera. Those are the biggest pain points. But I think it's actually really easy to find really great quality people, and obviously if they're cheaper, that's a benefit to the business. Of course, they're happy at a wage that for them may be really high, but for here might be junior, and so there's kind of a win-win to that aspect. But I don't really like go into it with that expectation or with that as like the reason for making our decisions. Like I mentioned before, like we're a very quality obsessed brand, and so by nature, if you're just like trying to get cheap, 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 like, you kind of go in the opposite direction of quality. So I would rather pay somebody double and have somebody who's really fantastic at what they do than pay, a discount and get somebody who's okay at what they do, right? So most of the people that are overseas are either that dev team and they're really great, and it's a get dedicated team that we've had like a 10-year relationship with, and so they hire and fire independently and they share our cultural values and all of that. But then there's the ones outside of that. We go through the same stringent hiring process as we do with the North American team, which is like you have to culturally align. Obviously, like ethnically and local culture is not the same, but the kind of ambition and obsession with quality, et cetera, like these are people that want to work on really awesome projects, and they know that the US has really awesome projects, and they want to just find a rocket ship they can attach themselves to. So those are the type of people that we try to work with when we do outside out of the country. Designers in particular, you can find some really great designers all over the world as well. So there's a nice variety, but I think it is you know client facing. Absolutely, you want to be US based. It's just better for optics, and it's just easier on everybody. I also tend to lean towards leadership being entirely US based, even if it's a leader that isn't going to talk to clients, because there we do have that. Like a head of HR, for example, would not really need to talk to clients ever. So we would hire for leadership in the US strictly from the perspective of team alignment And things like offsites and stuff like that. We want to meet in person. If there's um, we need to ship them things like merch and all sorts of stuff. Just stuff's easier when the key team is in the US. Um, and it also is, they understand the market better, right? Just by nature, they know this area, they know what's going on. They're more plugged into the politics and the economics and just the general vibe of how Americans are feeling right now and what's good, what's bad, all that. Um, Whereas somebody who isn't in the US is maybe able to get that, but they're always on a delay, right? And it's never like deep in their heart. Like they don't feel it. They don't share the experience that we all do. So um, I find that it's great for specialized roles that are independent of borders, like design and development. And then it's also great for junior roles when maybe you don't need like the best ever copywriter. You just need somebody who can get the words on the page for a certain project. And we also have the benefit of size. We have layers, so there's always like multiple rounds of editor review and stuff before it ever even goes to the client. So I think it's more important to be careful when you're smaller, because every hire is like that's 12% of our team now. Like that's a huge chunk. Whereas, we hire somebody and it's 2%. And so like a client wouldn't even be aware if we hired and fired every 30 days until we found the right fit. Like the client wouldn't ever know. So it matters more when you're small, but that's kind of what I meant why it gets easier, but it also gets harder, because you inevitably, to find great people, you have to go global. Um, but there are benefits to size. It's easier to make changes without it impacting the core business.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Hayden. It's important. I think I just got a bad taste in my mouth many years ago. I'm like, I am never doing that again. But I totally agree. There's talent all over the world, and for certain, to be able to leverage that talent, it would be great for UI UX. Absolutely. Like we can get that stuff offshore if it's not client facing. But yeah, and it's a lot more expensive for me. My margins are definitely less, but I feel good about bringing quality to my clients. And we have layers as well, especially with like content, for example, right? We don't want to have that offshored because there's like all kinds of language barriers. And, but to go through, brief, do a content brief and topical maps and get our outcome to be on brand is something that is like an internal. I'd much rather have that with my team here than outsource. But yeah, so I agree. There's a specific place for it, and maybe I need to work with you a little bit.
It'll take time, right? I think you will kind of get to a point as you grow that like only 20% of our team speaks to clients, so 80% of our team is like the guy behind the curtain, like nobody really knows what's going on because they don't need to. But like at one point in our past, it was like everybody spoke to everybody, everybody was client face, there was a lot. I think that's kind of, as you grow, some things get easier. And that's one thing is that you end up with kind of your knights of the round table, which are the ones that represent the company, that are client facing, that are like your champions of the brand. And then you have a lot of other things that are just, you have to have somebody to pull the pulleys and reload the thing, like there's just a lot of work that happens to make the rest of the business work. And when you get to the stage where, you're hiring people that um, will could never really impact client facing outcomes or client facing perspectives, it gets a lot easier to not have those stresses of hiring globally because that all the big negatives that come from it kind of go away. The only thing that can still be a hamper is the
I'm gonna jump in here, Hayden. I wanted to talk a little bit just specifically. Like I love what you guys are saying because I think it's so interesting to think of how complex actually hiring overseas can be if you're building that full team out and having a location versus like fulfillment tasks where you're not necessarily owning strategy, but you're just giving them labor-based tasks where again, like you said, that's not affecting like the customer experience, assuming you're verifying quality. That's an interesting aspect of that. Clint, I wanted to give you a chance to give us your perspective on how you're doing your outsourcing versus in-house of your agency.
At this stage, we've chosen to not outsource anything. I have a 4-person dev team, all of our optimization team for paid search, our SEO team. mostly for what Hayden said, right? We're not at the size where managing an offshore team and time zones and different holidays and all of those kind of things are manageable for us. And so the times that we have tried it, it's bit us in the ass. And so for us, my project manager for dev, as an example, she's our head of dev and sort of manages all website projects, is client facing, right? And so while she may be also doing development, there are times that we have noticed that it is much more efficient for me to have her on the call than just one of my account managers who then has to translate client desire, client want, client need to the developer, and then that knowledge being transferred back to the AM to the client. It was more efficient for us to have key members of each team that can absolutely jump in and be with the client. And so for us, we're also a little bit different in that from the boutique standpoint, we pick and choose, obviously, who we work with, but I don't just build a website for someone who is not an Excite client, right? So we don't have a dev team and a sales team that's just pumping out websites. We're building sites for clients who are onboarding with us to do AI, to do paid search, to do video production, to do SEO. And so for us, that decision to have our cohesive team all here so that everyone knows what the other one's doing and what the goals are from an Excite perspective, from development, from optimization, from video production and editing. There's just a clear view of our goal and strategy for the client. So I'm not opposed to it. I didn't get as maybe bad of a taste as Adam perhaps got, but we're just not at the place where I have a team that could manage it at the scale that Hayden's talking about.
I feel like I'm selfishly getting so much more out of this than you guys might be because it's so interesting as Sten Ventures is overseas. We're in India to see the different perspectives on overseas fulfillment. And I discussed a lot of this with all of you already. So I really appreciate even Adam's perspective of he's felt like it didn't work before was still so open with curiosity as to well, why, tell me a little bit more. I'm open to understanding how it could be better. Even hearing you talk Hayden say that and hearing your openness to learning more is really cool. I'd love for you guys to connect on LinkedIn and have another discussion on that in the future. We only have a few minutes left here, and I did want to do some AI questions, but for the sake of not going over with the time that you've given me already, which we appreciate, I'm going to ask one question that I just want each of you to give me your perspective on, which is, what are you the most excited about in AI, in the world of AI and marketing, that you think could change things over the next year for your customers? Where do you see the biggest advantages for them in taking advantage of this AI explosion that we're seeing in marketing?
I think lead acquisition is the tools that we have now in regards to LinkedIn, for example, how to be able to do sequences and reach your target audience and have generated messages that can resonate with them in a really unique way that's specific to their brand. That's where I really focus heavily on these days is getting the business in. Certainly there's AI tools that we use for our customers on that side, but I've been diving in to look at different AI tools to bring in customers for ourselves. And since we work a lot with B2B, we can actually offer that as a service to our B2B clients to say, hey, we know this works for us. We have a high conversion rate here. And so that development of testing and trying before we bring it to market, that's what we're heavily into, and it's amazing, all of the automation that can be done. I find that to be really unique. I was last week, just one more thing, I was at a trade show for a potential client. They're in the robotics industry, so I got to see the Boston Dynamics dog running around. I don't know if you guys ever seen Black Mirror, but that's gonna come. We're all screwed. But there's it's these guys do performance motion devices, so it controls how the arm moves on these dogs and XYZ axes. It is insane what is coming in on the peripheral side, on the robotics, the things that we're going to see in our lives over the next 10 years, not just behind a computer screen, but physically in our world. That intrigues me quite a bit.
For me, it's about making, since I work with smaller businesses, it's almost a democratization of marketing, of public relations. They have more access and ability to do things that they didn't necessarily have before. I teach public relations, and I'm training my students on, how can they make this possible for businesses they start, or where they're going to be down the road in their career. PR has always been a very expensive thing, and small businesses have been left out, in my opinion, from PR. That, for me, that's where the most exciting thing is working with my students and really kind of changing how I do public relations.
But I'll let you go and I'll bookend it.
All right. It's interesting. Obviously, I think that there's so many exciting things, and all of us, it's apparent, have a high level of expectation for the work that we're doing for our clients and internally with our teams. I am on a little bit of a different side of AI and what I'm excited about in the next year from the perspective of I think AI gets sold as a shortcut to efficiency. And what I'm most excited about is sort of future proofing my clients for where the world, in my opinion, is going from an AI perspective. It's sort of what I talked about when we talked about hiring in the beginning, right? And I said so much of what happens in a company doesn't live in systems, it doesn't live in documents, it lives in the interactions between people. And so what I'm most excited is about teaching my clients. Everyone's like, oh my God, we have AI and there's so many things that are possible. Just have it book appointments for me and just do these reservations and it's going to be so fabulous. I don't have to have people. And so what I'm most excited about is teaching people where and why to use AI. And so we talk about it as an autonomy scale, right? So how much am I willing to let this thing do? And so I'm most excited about onboarding clients and teaching them that this is just like a regular person. You have to treat every AI deployment like you're onboarding a real person. You wouldn't throw someone their first week on the job into a role without giving them context, right? So why would you do that with AI? You have to treat it like any other teammate, and you don't just toss it into a role or into a workflow and have some automations happen. You have to give it the playbook. And so how we're training our clients on onboarding this is what's most exciting to me. Like, let's get an AI agent on your website. Have it answer your after hours calls. As we get comfortable, this thing's going to learn more about who you are as a company, and we can give it more things to do. But don't throw it everything at once and then fail and go, AI is not working for me. It just doesn't work. I've had so many clients who are like, oh, somebody sold me this AI bot and it answered all these stupid questions. I'm like, that's because you didn't train it right. That's because it wasn't prompted correctly, right? Let me show you how to actually do it. And I'll spin up a demo for them in a couple hours and I'll be like, all right, go try to break it. See what happens. And they're like, how did you do that? What do you have? I'm like, nothing. I just know how to train it. I know how to control it so that you don't let it have this autonomy to go do whatever the heck it wants, right? And so for me, that's what I'm most excited about is sort of the educational side of bringing this and what it can do, right? Like for Excite, Sophia is my agent. She's been answering my phones, responding to any leads, form fills. She's the chat on my website. Like, I've been using her for 6 months. I've had zero human capital in booking new appointments for people who want to do work with Excite for the last 6 months. She does everything, puts it on everyone's calendars. It's organized. She sends them a summary of the call or the summary of the chat or what their form fill was. Here's what they want. You were talking about the AI summaries for your meetings. That's what she does. And so showing people, A, that I'm using it for everything and here's how we're using it. But it took me 6 months to get there. I didn't start day one letting it do all this and have access to my calendar and book time on my calendar. I don't know. There's no way I was letting that happen out of the gate, right? And so that's, I guess, what I'm most excited about is sort of the educational side of foundationally, why is this important? Give you time to do why you love doing what you're doing. Get rid of the stuff that I think it was Matt that was saying it earlier, right? Like, buy back your time. What are the tasks that you don't want to do that keep you up at night or keep you working on the weekends or not going to your kid's soccer game? Let that stuff happen on its own. Let me show you how to do that.
Just got to make sure if you decide not to use Sophia anymore, don't let her know because she'll probably blackmail you. So
Right. She's already warned me.
Uh, well, I know we're over time, so I'll be brief with my answer to this question. But um, what we're mostly using AI for at this point, I think AI is really exciting, and we all know that like kind of every few days there's some crazy new development, some photo generator, video generator, new LLM model, this one, that one, whatever. Um, and so it can be really challenging, one, just to keep up with the news, then let alone test all of these things. And then by the time you've cracked something, there's a whole new model out. You got to go learn this other thing, right? So it's a lot. What we're mostly working on with clients is building, pseudo products, like they're kind of pieces of this ecosystem, of this growing ecosystem that are usable for a specific purpose. And then helping them kind of employ them in their business. So, for example, Clint, you mentioned, you've got this like chatbot sales, kind of like a digital AI SDR, right? Like that would be a great example. That's kind of like you've got one packaged use case for AI, and it's able to kind of plug and play. And due to your experience, you've kind of got maybe the infrastructure already built out. You kind of know where the edges are, the corners are, you know where the stakes for the foundation are, et cetera. But then you got to kind of fill in the concrete with that business, and their specific context. We're trying to do that in the same way across a lot of verticals, content generation, social media calendars, planning for like media shoots, idea generation, research and reporting, market research, et cetera. So you can apply AI to any of these problems, but where most businesses, executives, marketers, et cetera, start and end is like in the ChatGPT window, and they just, they're like, what did Trump say today? Enter, and then that's like the extent, and they're like, all right, I now have everything I need. Um, and there's not like a really rigid process for doing that. And there's also a real big lack of understanding of how these models work, and the fact that they're not actually thinking, that they're kind of iterating on existing language. And so if you prompt blankly, it responds blankly, and you kind of have to tailor it to follow semantic patterns and things that you're actually wanting it to speak to. This gets really interesting when you get into, search engine optimization, or trying to have your business present in AI, like AI optimization, GEO, et cetera, whatever you want to call it. And so those are kind of like the frontiers we started on. We've kind of tackled the AIO GEO space. Um, and we built these little products that people can basically install in their business. And to what degree and complexity they understand it at day one, very little, but it kind of grows over time. But the idea is that we're putting all the training, all the effort into making this something that's actually usable, because they end up looking at it and then they go over to ChatGPT and try to have it do the same thing that what we built does, and they're like, why does it not look as good? What's like why isn't it doing what you did? And I'm like, well, you forgot the 42 steps between the thing you did and the thing I did. um, and so that's really, I think, the exciting stuff, because as these models grow and scale, being able to swap out a model or add in some functionality is fairly easy. It's the bones and the skeleton of like knowing how to train it, as Clint said, and like having a structure that, and a fundamental understanding of how these models work that most people don't have. And even just trying to get them caught up to speed is difficult, comparative to just saying, here, let me help you do it. Let me put this in place for you. So um, we have several of these kind of little products, you could call them, built, but we're kind of trying to build this library of, you could walk into the store and just say like, I want number 7 and number 3, and it's like great, and instantly it adds value to your business. And I think that's the most exciting thing for us, selfishly, as a company, is like we get to participate in that economy. um, and before the robot dogs take over, I think we have at least another 16, 24 months where this is going to be somewhat novel. And then, one of these AI companies is going to simplify all this to where when you prompt ChatGPT, it does the 42 steps. But until then, there's this kind of window of opportunity that a lot of companies are quickly missing. And so we're just trying to get there as fast as we can so that we can drag clients along with us.
I love it. I think of what.
It's definitely a land grab.
Go ahead, Clint. Sorry.
I said it's definitely a land grab right now.
Yeah, I think of what Matt said about there's aspects of the job he just really didn't like doing, right? When he talked to that consultant, they gave him some feedback and he's like, I don't want to build all this out. And the use of most of your customers on ChatGPT just being that first page, because man, I don't want to build all this out, or they never have any experience with it. Clint, when you first mentioned AI. I actually thought you were going a completely different way with it, where I've heard some agencies are so against it that they just want to do everything manually still. And I thought you were going that way, but you completely shifted into use it intentionally. And I think that's the theme I've seen across this entire podcast today is like so much deliberate action on building out a good process or building out good labor. Adam and Hayden and Clint and Heather, you even asking questions to try to understand how the onboarding phase is going to be impacting your new hires and trying to make sure you do that as well as possible. It's so deliberate. And I think that that's what we're looking for when we have agencies on is agencies that are trying to break the mold and not just deliver the, I hate using the term cookie cutter, but the cookie cutter product that may or may not be getting success. They just know it's in general supposed to work majority of the time and just plug it in to see if it works. Appreciate how deliberate you guys are. Appreciate you all being here. This has been another episode of SEO on Air. We encourage you all to connect with each other, and thanks for being here.